If you have ever walked away from a negotiation feeling like you gave too much, or if you have ever bit your tongue in a meeting, in a call, or maybe in the marketing that you're putting out there because you didn't want to come off as too much or too needy, but your money, your business, your whole financial life is still not where you want it to be, then this episode, we're going to talk about it. We need to talk about one of the most damaging, overlooked financial habits I see women of color entrepreneurs especially having over and over. One that I certainly had, and it is not budget related. This is the Brown Way to Money podcast, where women of color in business find their financial independence path. Because financial success is within our reach, but by playing by their rules, it is only going to take us halfway there. To succeed, we must take ownership of our voice with money. So, welcome to the Brown Way to Money podcast. Welcome back, sis, to another episode of the Brown Way to Money. I am so happy to have you here, and I apologize because I missed last week's episodes. When I was in the recording studio editing the episode, my laptop fell, just crashed. The screen was in a million pieces. It has been quite a journey to get me to be here recording this episode and, doing all of this stuff that I'm doing. But I'm so happy to be talking to you here today. And of course, stay until the end because today's episode is one of the goody ones. And at the end of the episode, I am going to tell you how to pitch your story to be featured in Forbes or HuffPost or Business Insider. If you're new to this podcast, I am your host, Alejandra Rojas, finance educator and Forbes columnist. And today we are talking about one of the worst financial habits I have seen and how it caps every single earning and wealth accumulation potential that as a woman of color we have. But before we dive into today's important topic, I have to invite you to spend 10 days of your life for free, receiving the best rewiring sessions you will have in 2025 from women of color who have done it. Imagine how your business could shift after being in the room with those who have grown their business and their platform to 3.5 million followers or made 6 figures in 6 months. Or those who have taken 3 years showing up consistently, and it was until they made a shift, specific set of actions that everything clicked. They finally found what it worked, and now they are showing up and growing those platforms. These are 10 days that you're going to spend with women of color who have created the at least 200,000 follower platforms and 6 figures business. I am interviewing these 10 women, the role, the tactics, the mindset, that everything that you have to do so that you stop spinning and start showing up and growing your business. And I'm bringing it to you all for free. So don't let this chance to hack your mind, literally hack your mind and bypass any financial trauma, any limiting belief, and start doing the steps. You could be sitting in December right there where you are again, enjoying the results of having invested 1 minute to enroll on this free series. If you go to brownwaytommoney.com/rewire, it will take 1 minute for you to enroll, and all that you have to do is to receive the information and apply the exact step-by-step that they are giving you, or you could let this opportunity pass, and then in December, you will be still trying to figure it out. Again, go to brownwaytommoney.com/rewire and enroll in this free series. Let's start talking financial habits and where does this habit really starts? I need to tell you that we don't really choose this habit, and it is often the first language of survival. This habit is a language. It's truly how we have survived for generations and generations of history, of pain, of everything that we know our ancestors have gone through. We don't just choose it. it is really something that we have inherited, especially for women of color. We were taught to be grateful. Weren't you taught to be grateful? What is the first thing that we have been taught as when we are growing up? When we are growing up, we are being told that you always say thank you, you always are grateful, and we continue to see that relative, right? So we have been always taught to be grateful. Do not ask for too much, and that being seen means being judged, or in many cases in our ancestors' life, to be punished. So we stay quiet to protect ourselves, even if it is subconsciously. But the same silence that keep us safe is now keeping us stuck, especially in the route of entrepreneurship. When you avoid visibility, you avoid pitching, you avoid charging what your services are worth and what your services are transforming, you're not just staying in the humble space, you are staying small, because humble doesn't mean growth, and growth means opportunity to amplify your income, right? But what does that actually look like in your business and in your money? And of course, this is an invitation for you to become aware how it's showing up for you. But I want to break it down into ways that I have seen with the people that I work with, this financial habit showing up the most. Silence as a financial habit is what it really shows up, and it's very expensive. So then it is not lack of a strategy. It is not overspending. It is not lack of a strategy, but staying quiet when you need to speak up. Because the calladita te ves más bonita, the don't talk back, the stay in child's place, the don't make it harder for others is leading the conversation. And that's how you are leading your financial decisions. Thus, it becomes a very expensive financial habit. Maybe you have been the one who didn't ask the question, because last time that you did, somebody just simply rolled their eyes or never talked to you again, like they ghost you or they dismissed you or something happened. I know it happened to me plenty of times in the school, because that is what happens, right? Or maybe you undercharge it, and even though that you knew better, because maybe you undercharge it, maybe you ended up wanting to close that client, and in order to do that, instead of meeting what the value is and walking through the pricing strategy of it, you just lower your prices. You knew you were undercharging, but even though that you knew that, you went with it because it felt safer than risking that rejection. That's maybe how it's showing up. Or maybe it's showing up when you stay quiet when a client crosses your boundary, hoping it will resolve itself. I want you to become aware of how this financial habit is showing up and how much is it costing you. Because every time you stay silent, every time we stay silent, it costs us. It costs us money on the table because we just settle for what we don't really want to settle, but we do. It costs us opportunities that you didn't feel quote unquote ready for. And it costs us peace, like some peace that you cannot afford to lose. But you are not alone on this. And I really want to highlight this because this is not a you problem. The fact that silence is a financial habit of us doesn't make you an isolated financial habit that belongs to you. It is a habit that belongs to all of us because, like I said, it has been inherited from our ancestors as a protection mechanism. In fact, I posted this episode came from a LinkedIn post that I did about this. And somebody shared, a woman on our community shared her story, how she's in a legal fight with a former employer who made $1 million decisions without her input, even though that she was in charge of that decision-making process. And even though she built the system from day one for that specific thing, she asked for clarity, for support, for transparency over and over. They resigned her, ignore her warnings, and treat her voice like it didn't matter. But hey, she didn't stay silent. Now that she's in this legal battle, she stood up documented everything, advocated for her truth, because sometimes that is the most powerful act and that is the most powerful financial decision you can take when everybody is counting on you staying silent. So what is silent costing you right now? In dollars, in peace, in legacy, in the amount of business that you want to have, in how much you want to grow your business, how much is costing you? Let's name it. Because when we start considering that and accounting for that, bookkeeping for that. And we have an amazing episode about bookkeeping and how important it is for your business with Joyce that I'm going to link on the show. But this type of bookkeeping that I'm talking about is the type of bookkeeping that will help your mind with numbers and finances, not the amount for the books and for the taxes. The bookkeeping that we have to understand and interact with money differently. So when we see it clearly, when we have that bookkeeping, we can stop paying for it unconsciously. And that is so important if we want to grow our business and be on our path towards financial independence. Hey sis, I want to interrupt this episode just a second to remind you that Rewire, yes, 10 Black, Brown, and Latino women with massive success who are going to tell you how they did it. How did they grow to more than 200,000 followers platform and created the multiple six figures business from scratch? You will hear all the raw stories. This series is open. These are women you don't always hear from, but you should, because hearing the behind the scenes of how they broke patterns, reclaimed their power, and built lives that are richer in every single way is what you need to hack your own mind from financial trauma, from limited beliefs, and start growing your own platform. You get access right now if you go to brownwaytomoney.com/rewire. That is brownwaytomoney.com/rewire. These are 10 women, 10 different stories, massive success, how they did it exactly. And yes, the secret word of today's episode is rewired. Okay, coming back. Why is it important that you understand the cost of visibility? I am not here, and I have always been an advocate of you monetizing your business before the 10,000 followers, I have done that. I know that you can do it. My clients have done that. The point of visibility and breaking silence with your platform as a woman of color is to rewire the way that you see and interact with money, because it is only possible to break those big ceiling limits when you put your word out there. And I'm talking about that the kind of visibility that I am advocating for and the kind of visibility that you will see on the Rewire series that we talked about. It is not only about growing a platform, which is important if you want to create massive impact with your business, but is about how, as a woman of color, that fact of becoming visible starts to have a ripple effect on the way that you see money, on the way that you see power. I want to just go in a tangent before I close this episode on how visibility has been capped for women of color not too long ago. Let's talk about the women of color that we know. You know, Beyonce. Let's talk about some of the women of color out there doing great things. Beyonce, Rihanna, Oprah. Who else comes to mind? Emma Grade, Michelle Obama, Viola. She's a huge advocate for financial literacy. Maya Angelou, Zoe Saldana, Salma Hayek, Penelope Cruz, Sofia Vergara, Jennifer Lopez. I mean, all of the references that you can reference have been there because they put themselves out there to be visible. And the ripple effect is not only on them, but on their platform that they have created on their business. You will hear in one of the interviews on Rewire where we talk about with Isa Montalbano. She has grown her platform to massive success. And one of the things that we talked about on that interview is how specifically speaking up your message message right now in a way that is visible, in a way that shows up, in a way that attracts more people is a protection mechanism. Quite the opposite of what has been happening for generations before, because on the times where slavery was on, where talking, where speaking your truth was a threat, guess what our ancestors learned? To not speak, to stay on that place, right? Even though that they knew, even though that they were these massive experts, staying quiet was the protection mechanism. And when Isa in the interview for Rewire said that right now speaking up is your protection mechanism, something clicked. And this is coming from a person that worked on communications for political parties in the US, but also coming from her experience as a woman of color, as a Latina, who has used her LinkedIn as the powerful source of protection of her message, of who she is and how she decides to grow her business. That is the reason why I have built Rewire. That is the reason why I literally handpicked every single of these 10 women of color to come and tell us their story on how they did it and how they continue to show up, because visibility is one of the only ways that women of color have to rewire their own money story. When you stay silent, you are buying into somebody else's money story. When you start putting your story out there, that's when you start to change. And that's when you start to grow your business. And that's how you manage to break through that glass ceiling, to break to that limiting belief. This has been a long due episode. So sis, if today this episode resonated with you, good, because silence has stolen enough from us. It is time to speak up, to charge, and show up with clarity. So here's your little challenge for today. Find one place this week where you have been quiet out of fear. This is huge. And take one decision to do differently. Post it, tag me, say it, charge it, own it, do whatever you want with it, but become aware of it. And if you're ready to be seen even more, pitch me your story with the link that I'm going to link on the show notes for the Forbes article. I am working on right now on how visibility have changed the way that you relate to money. If you have put yourself out there and you started to think differently about money, I want to hear from your story. And of course, please share this episode with 3 sisters who have been hiding in plain sight. And leave a review, subscribe, and always keep walking your brown way to money. Okay, did you hear something that you liked in today's episode? If so, don't keep it to yourself. Go ahead right now. Yes, right now. Before this episode ends, and send this episode to those 3 friends, 3 girlfriends that you know you can go to talk about finance, independence, money, business growth, entrepreneur life, and all of these juicy topics. Share this episode with them, because that is the only way we can grow together. I'm Alejandra Rojas, your host, and I will see you next week.